I don't want to make this video. Oh, this one. I watched episode 8, the beginning, a few days ago. I thought if I took a few days before talking about this one, I would be less mad because I ended the episode really mad. And there are still things that I liked about it and things I liked about the season overall that I still do want to talk about, but this one, ooh. I would say, as usual, no spoilers in the comment section, but this was the last episode of the season, so spoilers away. Give me all your crazy theories. Before we get started digging into the last episode, though, I do want to clear up some things I've seen people saying about the show. I think that we all watched the same show and came away with some different interpretations. So there's a few things that I want to get us on the same page about first before we dig into these things. The first thing I want to talk about is the kids' birthday party at the very beginning of episode 1. I interpreted that scene to be that Coop has had a fall from grace. And so as we were watching the show, I was trying to figure out, where did his money go? Why did he end up in that situation? Apparently, some people watched that scene and did not think of it as a fall from grace, but rather like you can hire a celebrity, for the right price at any point. Like you could pay a band $25 million and they'll come to your private birthday party. And did not interpret that as like Coop was kind of desperate for money at this point. Some people also saw it and thought it was Janie's birthday party. So I went back and I rewatched that part of episode 1. It's definitely not Janie's birthday party. Coop says in the very beginning, "Hey, birthday boy." It's clearly this boy's birthday. We also overhear two dads talking about why Coop is doing birthday parties, and they make it clear that he is desperate for the money for alimony for Barb after their divorce, which I honestly missed my very first watch through. We get told right up front that he and Barb have had a divorce. The second misconception that I want to talk about is the date that Shady Sands fell. So in previous episodes, we saw Lucy in Vault 4 looking at the chalkboard with all the dates of all the events, and we saw this one that said the fall of Shady Sands was in 2077, and then an arrow to the bomb. Some people in my comments argued that that's not true, that 2077 was the beginning of the fall and the bombs were ambiguously a few years later. I really disagree with that interpretation, and especially from what we learn in this episode, that the fall of Shady Sands was not slowly over the period of many years. It was a thriving society up until the fall. That to me means 2077 was the year those bombs dropped. We also don't see any other ambiguous dates on that blackboard, and we know that most people in that vault are survivors from the fall of Shady Sands, so they would know that is part of their history. It would be super weird to have all these specific dates and specific years and then just trail off with, I don't know, and then some other stuff happened. We also, very importantly, we know that Lucy's mom died in 2077. We know that from Lucy herself when she's talking to the ghoul when they come across Roger. She says, "The plague of 77, my mom starved." So we know that 2077 is the year her mom died, which we can piece together from what we learned in this episode is probably when her dad went and brought her back into the vault. So 2077 is definitely when those bombs fell in Shady Sands, not just the result of things happening in 2077. Some other creators have pointed out that that date, 2077 being the year that Shady Sands gets blown up, does put the show in conflict with some lore from the games. To be honest, those are games that I'm less familiar with than Fallout 4, which probably means I'm due for a playthrough. So maybe we'll do that as our next series after this one. Stay tuned. The third thing that we need to clear up is ghouls having that supercharged healing ability. That to me is such a deviation from what we see in the games, and the amount of comments I've seen from other viewers is, no, it's not. Like, ghouls heal from radiation, like that's a thing. I'm sure it is a thing. Ghouls are dead. And I said that before and somebody corrected me. I understand that they're like living, but their flesh is dead. They are described as post-necrotic human beings. Like their flesh is dead. We get that confirmed in the games. Whatever has happened to them, they have gone into this state of radiosynthesis where their cells are feeding on radiation. I'm not debating that. I do think that is the case with ghouls. I think that they can feed on radiation in the same way that people can feed on normal food. If I am getting shot at in Fallout and I pause to eat a box of sugar bombs, my HP will go up slightly. I would argue that that's similar for ghouls healing with radiation. If I'm shooting them, they will take damage, but they can heal with some radiation. It does not mean that their cells can regenerate and repair their broken, bloody foot stump. Like, that's not a thing we've seen in games. And To prove my point, I went into game and decided to try and prove this one, and it's not my playstyle at all, so I didn't love doing this. But for you guys, here you go. Okay, I teleported myself to... I picked Captain Zhao as our ghoul here just because I care about him the least. I'm really not proud of what I'm about to do here, but this is for science. So I'm going to get just a regular pistol first, and we're going to shoot him in the leg and see if it regenerates. Yeah, see, his health is not going back up, and that's my point. Like, in a regular situation, a ghoul does not just super repair himself. I do have a gamma gun. So this is pure radiation. And what some of you have been arguing is like, well, that is what would heal him. Okay, so the right leg is what I hit. So let's hit that with radiation. That actually shouldn't have hurt him at all. He used a stim pack. Okay, so he's healing because of the stim pack. That finished. He's not healing more than that. Let's try hitting him with more radiation. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you guys. The ghouls in the games do not have the supercharged healing abilities that they have in the show. That's just not what happens. I'm sorry, Zhao. I am very confused about why the gamma gun actually did damage on a ghoul. My best guess, I think the gamma gun is mostly radiation damage, but still has some ballistic damage. And I think because I have all the perks for pistols, that one really just did a lot more damage than it should have. But you could see like that supercharged healing ability is just, it's not a thing. And it really bothered me in the show because you functionally made characters like Coop immortal. Like a whole town couldn't take him down. And it's a deviation from the show, and I know some people are tiptoeing around that. It's still fun to have in the show. I'm not saying it's not, but it's definitely different. That ties into the fourth thing I want to talk about, which is at the end of last episode, we saw Thaddeus get shot in the neck, start to heal, and Maximus says, I think you might be a ghoul. A lot of people, it sounds like, have interpreted that as it's just Max's guess, and he may actually reveal to be a super mutant. Like maybe he got infected with FEV instead, and that's what's causing the super healing. I don't buy that theory. I don't buy that theory because I think the change to ghouls being able to have this supercharged healing regeneration factor is a big enough deviation. I don't think they can do that again for super mutants. I don't think that you can introduce this concept of ghouls to us where they're functionally immortal, nearly impossible to kill, and immediately heal from any damage, and do the same thing to super mutants. Like, I'm mad enough that they did that to ghouls, because again, that's not how it works in games. I think I would stop watching if they were like, also there are super mutants who also do this. Like, that's not how super mutants work either. Some people said, like, Max doesn't know what a ghoul is. And while that's true, like Max and Thaddeus were both trained by the Brotherhood. Remember, we saw them in classes learning about things. They definitely have also been trained on super mutants, on ghouls. And I'm not saying that information is the most accurate. It's definitely biased and messed up if it's coming through the Brotherhood. But they do both have reason to believe and agree that the supercharged healing factor is an attribute of ghouls, not super mutants. Like when Maximus said, I think you're a ghoul, if there was any reason to doubt that, if there was any inconsistency in that logic, Thaddeus would have called it out, but he doesn't. He agrees. The other reason I don't buy that theory is because the show has not been using reveals based on knowledge from the games. I thought that's what was going to happen. I thought that was what was going to happen when Thaddeus and Knight Titus came across the bear cave. I thought that was going to be our Deathclaw reveal, and that would have been really cool for players of the games to be able to be like, oh man, that's a Deathclaw. And they didn't. The show chose to make it a bear and still make that very palatable to a new audience, which is a great choice. Like, I think it makes the show very accessible to people who haven't played the games. And if that's the way they're going, they're not going to turn that on you and be like, actually, surprise, it's this other thing you've never heard of. It's a super mutant that we actually haven't talked about at all up until this point, and there's this thing called FEV. Like, the show hasn't really been doing that before. I don't buy the super mutant theory. It would be cool, but I don't think they've given us enough foreshadowing of it to make that something that would realistically happen. But coming back to the actual episode, let's talk about what happened in that episode. And I've been bouncing back and forth, sometimes doing these reviews focusing on a specific character. This one is crazy overlapping and bounces between all characters all the time. So I think we should just talk about chronologically what happened in the show when it happened. So Episode 8, we open on Maximus, who remember has stayed behind, allowing Thaddeus to run away and Lucy to take the actual head. Maximus has stayed behind with the decoy head to present to the Brotherhood. The Brotherhood picks up Max, takes him back in a vertibird all the way back to Philly, where the Brotherhood has pretty much taken over the entire town. Maximus kneels to present the head to the Elder, and the Elder immediately calls him out, "You are wearing the Knight's red." And Maximus has to admit, yeah, Knight Titus is dead. The Brotherhood has this device to scan the head for the artifact, and they can tell in 0.2 seconds that the artifact is not in this head. This isn't the real head. They call him a liar. And Maximus is so quick to be like, wait, I can take you to the real head. I can't tell what his goal is. Like, I really can't tell. Is he genuinely like flipping on Lucy that fast, or is he just trying to buy time? I think he's just trying to buy time, because that was this whole plan anyway, was just to take the Brotherhood off the scent for a little bit. Regardless, the Brotherhood does not buy it. They call him a liar, and Dane actually interrupts to say, Maximus is not a liar. I am responsible for my own injury. And side note, I'm just loving that we have Dane again. I think that Dane is just so gorgeous, just a wonderfully attractive character, and I'm just really excited to see them again. That's it. Elder Quintus asks Maximus, how did Knight Titus die? And Maximus says he died running, which isn't technically true, but I guess the gist of it is true. Like, he did die as a coward, like kind of shaming the Brotherhood's beliefs and not being brave. So true enough. And this is where they really lose me, because Quintus, he starts going on this rant about how power is taken, not given. We have to take more power. And you and I are going to start a new brotherhood. I'm going to be the head and you're going to be the sword. Why in the world would he trust Maximus at that point? Maximus has lied to him like multiple times. Like, it's clear that Maximus is not a good soldier of the Brotherhood. He's not really tied to the mission. He doesn't really want to be there. He lied about the head. He lied to buy time for his friends. Why in the world would anybody trust him? Like, this has to be a trap, but it's kind of a stupid trap, and I don't like it. We cut to Lucy, who's arriving at Moldaver's observatory, and my first impression is that it looks like a thriving little community. Like, you have crops there, you have people farming. You also have a very interesting ghoul in the background who we've got to talk about at some point, right? Like, what a cool looking character. We jump from Lucy to pre-war Coop, who's driving Barb to the office after bungling her oil change, which we know is a lie. He just wants to be close enough so he can spy on her with that weird spy device thing. Bud Askin shows up in a single person mini car. I don't know if you remember, but in one of my earlier reviews, I commented on how bummed I was that the cars in the set design of Philly didn't include a neat little single person car model that we know from places in games like Starlight Drive-In in Fallout 4. We know in universe that they have these single person cars, and we hadn't seen them until Bud pulled up, and I was just so delighted by that. I really was absolutely tickled that they included it. Bud tells Coop about this program he has, Buds, where he can, continue to oversee projects for millennia, which is foreshadowing what we're going to learn about later, because I'm hearing that and I'm like, yeah, that sounds like immortality, right? Barb comments that her Pip-Boy isn't working right. Like, she can see the transmitter is on. And I'm like, girl, you work for Vault Tech. If you can see that your transmitter is on, you've obviously been hacked. Like, don't wear it into your very important meeting then. You know what I mean? Like, have some OPSEC here. I'm also so annoyed at the range this transmitter has. Like, Coop has to be right next door to be able to hear anything, which sounds so low tech, even though I understand that a lot of early spy devices did work that way. If you're interested in that sort of thing at all, look up The Thing. It's at the Spy Museum in DC, and I think it's a fascinating piece of history. But it was the spy transmitter device that, to get information from it, the people using it had to sit in their car, like right outside of the embassy. And so I understand that it's not totally unrealistic that Coop would have to be inside Vault Tech to actually use this listening device, but it is frustrating, especially because it was given to him by Moldaver, who is arguably like so technologically far ahead of everybody else with her research that it's frustrating that he has this piece of garbage tech to work with. You know what I mean? But he's forced inside for the plot anyway. Hopping back to Lucy, she finds Moldaver and she finds her dad in a cage. I don't know why I was surprised that he was in a cage. I guess I thought that he'd be like working with Moldaver, not just kept prisoner. I do like that that implies to us that Moldaver was very confident that Lucy was going to come after her, which seems like it would have been a bigger gamble, betting on a vault dweller to come into the wasteland. But I think Moldaver understands a lot more about humans than other people here seem to. There's also a feral ghoul here who is very skeletal, like very little skin left. And again, I am so frustrated by the ghoul lore here. Like, can they regenerate skin or they can't regenerate skin? Like, is this the state that she was in when she died, or I don't get it. Lucy gives Moldaver the real head, who removes the implant with a little drill thing. And as Moldaver is talking about who Hank really is, we cut to Norm, who is in Vault 31. The mechanical whirring we heard at the end of last episode is revealed to be a robo-brain, which the captions introduce this character as Brain on a Roomba, which is delightful. Brain on a Roomba is confused by Norm, first thinking it's Betty, then Hank, then realizing no, it's somebody who shares 50% of Hank's DNA, realizing somebody unauthorized has gotten into the vault and comes at Norm with a syringe, but Norm easily steps out of the way. It's very slapstick humor. It's very cute. As that's happening, we cut back to a meeting that is happening inside Vault-Tec. Bud and Barb are sitting just side by side at the table representing Vault-Tec, and I'm confused. I guess I thought that Barb was a much lower level employee at Vault-Tec, which she did lead us to believe, but I think this is revealing to us that she's a lot higher up than we thought she was. Vault-Tec is looking for funding, so they're meeting with all these big companies, Robco, Westech, Big Mountain. They're trying to convince them to invest in Vault-Tec. And these other companies, they're not really confident in the vaults. They start arguing. They point out things like, if people are left alive on the surface, they're going to kill the vault dwellers. It's never going to work. But Bud assures them that the vaults have the resources to survive for centuries. As everybody's arguing, we see this like shadowy figure walking around upstairs. I have to assume that that's like whoever owns Vault-Tec and is probably going to be an antagonist for us in season 2. But regardless, that's motivation for Barb to sort of take focus of the meeting. And as she does, we cut back to Norm. Norm continues to evade the brain on a Roomba, and he turns on the lights to see that the entire vault is filled with cryopods. And I just want to point out what I said at the beginning of this. The show has been very intentional about not doing reveals that would only be meaningful to people who have played the games. Like, you could have just shown me a cryopod and I would have said, oh, cool, cryopods. Like, it's from the intro of Fallout 4. But they foreshadowed that with the lab level on Vault 4. They had people in cryopods. They talked about it. We know that cryopods exist. They foreshadowed that technology in a way that made that reveal also accessible to an audience who hadn't played the game. So I thought that was interesting. The brain on a Roomba introduces the people in the cryopods as Bud's buds, and we realize that the Roomba brain is Bud. It's honestly a fantastic reveal. Bud says it would have been insane to keep a failed nation alive, so we kept Vault-Tec alive instead. And I'm like, what? Like, that doesn't make any sense. You're right. It would have been insane to keep a failed nation alive. Like, society evolves. It is equally insane to try and keep a company alive, arguably a failed company since they were so desperate for funding and then blew up the world. Like, what the hell is he on? Back at the actual Vault-Tec meeting, Barb says we have to hedge our bets. You know, Bud has this idea for 3 interconnected vault, but we need your ideas. We need more ideas. She's encouraging them to bring the spirit of competition to the solution. And I guess the idea here is they're allowing each company to claim several of Vault-Tec's vaults so they can test their own ideas to create the perfect scenario for the perfect future of humanity with, you know, however many unethical things they need to do. And in exchange for that, these companies invest in Vault-Tec. And that gives us a reveal of what's going on in 31, 32, 33. 32 and 33 are just breeding pools for making families with the people from pre-war from Vault-Tec in 31 to create a generation of super managers, people with positivity. They continue to throw ideas at the wall, things like, we could intentionally overcrowd a vault so people compete, which I think was a vault that we know exists canonically. Same with using a vault to develop a super soldier. I think that was the FEV experiment. And they asked Betty, how can you guarantee results? And she says, this big dramatic reveal, by dropping the bomb ourselves. I said before I appreciated that the show was going in this direction with the Vault Tech did it angle, and I still do appreciate that they're doing that, but I don't think this makes any sense. For these companies to be motivated to invest in Vault Tech, they need to see some kind of return, and that's probably better done by like bribing somebody who's lobbying against the peace talks, not blowing up the world. But I will come back to this rant at the end, and for now I will just say I love the way they portrayed Robert House. I thought that he looked exactly like I pictured him from the games, and I really loved that part. We then learn that the assistant that Coop was talking to is Betty, and that Henry is Hank. So Hank and Betty existed pre-war in Vault-Tec. Full circle reveal here. We as the audience are learning this, and it's overcut with Moldaver revealing basically the same thing to Lucy, and then Barb does the iconic line, "War never changes." She also goes on to say that friction and war only exist because society was created without guidance, which I'm not buying it, but we'll come back to that at the end. We come back to Maximus and the other soldiers in the Brotherhood who are armoring up. Dane admits that they hurt themselves because they were scared of going out into the wilds, and Maximus admits that he is planning to leave for somewhere safe, for a vault to be with Lucy, and Dane says, "There is nowhere safe, and there is no leaving." That line actually gave me chills. Like, I loved it because we, thought from the beginning of the first few episodes that Dane was genuinely invested in the Brotherhood, was genuinely excited to be a squire and stuff. And that's not true. Nobody's really happy to be there. This is a high control cult. And it sets us up for such a cool season 2, honestly, because I don't think Max is getting out of this that easy. Back to Moldaver, we are finally getting Rose's backstory. Rose figured out something was up in the vault when she noticed that something was siphoning their water away. She deduced that civilization had returned to society. She was right. Shady Sands existed. She told Hank, and he said that was ridiculous. Rose ran away. She left the vault. She took Lucy and she took Norm and she took them to Shady Sands. We get a very similar scene to the one that we did when Lucy was remembering the feel of the sun, and we get a zoomed out reveal that it was in fact the sun. And again, I think the show did a wonderful job of foreshadowing that that was going to happen. It leaked just enough details to us that we could theorize what was happening, and I said in my recap of that video, I wouldn't be shocked if she was actually outside in this clip, and then we got the reveal that she was actually outside in that clip. Hank came after them, he took the kids, and he destroyed the city. And just referring back to what I said earlier, this would have been, when he took the kids back to the vault, this would have been in 2077, because he would have told them, like, that's how their mother died, through this plague. So 2077 is definitely when the bombs dropped on Shady Sands. I think this whole reveal, this backstory being told by Moldaver, it is a really interesting way to explain a lot of backstory to somebody who doesn't know it, while also showing us clips, but having it explained. I hate this reveal. I hate this so much. The fact that Vault-Tec, 200 some years after the original bombs dropped, still has access to live nuclear weapons, it makes the game so unfair that it feels like it's not even worth playing. Like, if Vault-Tec has been not only functioning, but still has access to bombs, that's so overpowered, it ruins a lot of the fun in game. Like, for me, the fun thing about Vault-Tec is that they were wrong. Like, you get in the games that moment, that Planet of the Apes, you bastards blew it all up moment. You can go into like the regional offices of Vault-Tec and you can laugh. You can laugh about how wrong they were and how messed up they were. And changing that backstory to be, actually, they're still the ones pulling the strings, it changes the entire feel of the game in a way that I really dislike. And I will continue on that rant at the end because we have more episode to get through first. Remember, a few episodes ago, Moldaver mentioned cold fusion. We just didn't know what it was yet, but she explains it is limitless, clean energy. We can build a new society with free power, with medicine, with everything that we need. But of course, Vault-Tec made it proprietary, so she needs Hank to give her the access code so she can actually use it. This whole time, of course, Hank is begging Lucy not to listen, but she tells Hank to give Moldaver the code. I wish that she had said more. And I understand that we just got a bunch of exposition from Moldaver. We don't really need more characters explaining how they feel. But I would have loved to hear from Lucy how she felt. I would have loved, she has been such a talker this whole show. She has tried to solve every problem with talking. She has so much to say on who's a good person and who's not. I would have loved for her to confront her father and be like, what you did was bad. Like, we're not the good guys if that's who Voltac is. I would have loved for her to say, like, Moldaver's trying to make a safe place. Like, why aren't we supporting that? And she doesn't. She just says, give her the code, which Hank does. And I'm kind of like, hold up, you killed like 30,000 people over this. You're just gonna like hand it over? The code, they show it to us on screen. So I knew it had to mean something, but I didn't recognize it off the top of my head. It's 101097, which is, I did have to Google this, the original release date of the original Fallout game, October 10th, 1997. So that's a really cool Easter egg. We come back to Norm, who's still in Vault 31 for just a second, and the brain Roomba tells him, you should wait this out in your dad's pod. There's no food here. I'm not going to let you go. There's no way you're getting out of this. We also get to see the screen with the names of the people who have been defrosted, and there's not that many of them, which opens up some more questions for me that I'll come back to at the end. Back to Hank, he's telling Lucy, I did what I had to do to save our people, and as they're talking, the Brotherhood arrives, and it is gory. The observatory shoots a missile at a vertibird, and a scribe straight up falls and gets blended up by a vertibird propeller. That's crazy. Hank tells Lucy the surface is horrible. People do horrible things to each other, and he had to choose between their violent world and his peaceful one. First of all, you can never choose a type of people. And second of all, if you're bombing 30,000 people, you are the violent world. The battle ensues. It is incredibly, incredibly gory. And it's done over the song, I Don't Want to See Tomorrow, which I love when they do that. They pair the slow-mo gore with the 50s music. It's just so very Fallout. Hank says something like, if the problem with the world is factions fighting, then the solution obviously is to get rid of the factions. And he's just working off of so much misinformation that I'm pissed watching it. Like, the problem with the world isn't that different groups of people exist. Sorry, again, I'll save my rants for the end. The Brotherhood continues just mowing people down. Maximus is actually fighting very bravely, and then enter the Ghoul. Remember, Coop fought in the war in Alaska. He fought in power armor, so he knows a lot about them, and he knows how to beat them. He takes out a Brotherhood knight it's so satisfying. That was a bad snap. There we go. Max finds Lucy and her dad, and he shoots the lock off the door so he can let Hank out. Lucy tells him Hank was the one responsible for Shady Sands. Hank then puts on power armor and punches Max in the head. I hate this guy. Lucy pulls a gun on him, and Hank is like, you see what this place does? Like, buddy, it's not the place. It's that you're a psychopath. Coop interrupts and fires a shot at Hank, which grazes his cheek. It's revealed to us that Coop recognized the name McLean. That's what he was tracking to get some answers about Voltac. He asks Hank, where is my family? And Hank flies away. I don't know who Coop is asking about here, because he was with his daughter the day the bombs dropped, and he and Barb were divorced at the time, so that's still kind of an open question, and one, again, that I will come back to after the episode summary. We look at the aftermath of this battle, and there is just so much blood, and I'm asking myself, like, why did any of these people die? Like, Moldaver had this kind of self-sustaining settlement with people who were mostly farmers and people locally who had come to help because they believed in this vision. Why are they all dead? Like, what was the point of that? We know that the Brotherhood's motivation has always been, we have to collect this technology to save people from technology, but they didn't really flesh that out. And so this violence just seems very senseless. Like, we really don't know why these faceless knights were just kind of charging in and mowing these people down, and nothing about the aftermath feels deserved. Coop says that war never changes, but there's always someone behind the wheel, and he's trying to find that someone. He invites Lucy to come with him, and she picks up her gun and fires a shot. It's revealed that that shot was to put her mom out of her misery. She tells the Ghoul okie dokie and follows him, leaving an unconscious Max behind. Max does wake up, but he's alone and disoriented. Moldaver comes back in, she activates the cold fusion, and she takes a seat next to Rose. We see lights out in the city start to turn on. Like, there's a whole power grid already connected and a whole city of housing out there that now has electricity. Moldaver says, maybe you stop them, maybe you can't. maybe all you can do is try. And it's the first mantra in this show, genuinely, that I've believed in even a little bit. She succumbs to her injuries while holding Rose's hand. Which, are they a couple? That's a couple, right? Like that they were together. Dane comes in and sees that Moldaver is dead and gives Max credit for that death. They all start chanting, "All hail Knight Maximus," and it's creepy, it's culty, and there's this deep sense of dread that, like, yeah, Max is not getting out. The very last shot we get is of Hank approaching somewhere. To be honest, I don't recognize it. And I've said in this video, the show has been pretty good at setting us up to recognize these big reveals when they happen, and so this one stumped me. To be honest, I had to Google it. The internet says that it's the Vegas skyline. I don't know if I just didn't recognize that from the games or if it's a thing I'm supposed to recognize from real life. Did you recognize the ending reveal of the city? If you did, if you didn't, please let me know. I'd love to know that I wasn't alone, or if this is more common knowledge than I thought, I'd love if that was just a gap in my knowledge and not a gap in the show. And that's the end of the episode. I have so many more questions. And I'm kind of frustrated about the information we did get. I still had so many questions about the Enclave, and to be honest, I thought that's where Hank was heading at the end of the episode. And so seeing a different city skyline, like, confused me. Because remember, the Enclave, I think, is implied to be at the head of all of this because the doctor that escaped when he was talking to Lucy, he knew her full name and he knew her vault. Like, he knew what was going on inside of it. So I thought that the Enclave was the one pulling the strings, but that didn't seem to be the case. I feel like they set up that part of the mystery and then just kind of forgot where they were going with it. And now are just like, well, season 2 is going to be in Vegas. Unless the Enclave is in Vegas, but that's not true, right? I also want more information about why and when Vault 32 was breached. We know sometime after Shady Sands fell and Rose McClane died or became this feral ghoul or whatever her state is, we know that Moldaver had her Pip-Boy and used that Pip-Boy to get into 32, to be able to infiltrate 33, to be able to get Hank. But I don't really understand the details of it because who cleaned up 32? From the scene where they're exploring in 32 and we see the writing on the wall, like, we know it's in 31, at some point that vault must have discovered the experiment, knew what was going on but couldn't do much about it, and just collapsed from the infighting and stuff like that. And then, I mean, did Bud not know that? Because if that was my experiment, like, I would have done the resettling there and then. I wouldn't have left that untouched for like 10 years. The fact that Hank was willing to let Lucy marry somebody from 32 means that Hank thought that vault was still fully functional. And given that these vaults were meant to be breeding pools, I don't think that Lucy's marriage would not have been oversaw by Bud. I think that Bud would have picked somebody for her to marry. So to have it be feasible in any way that it was a raider who came out of 32 because the vault had been infiltrated, like, that seems like a plot hole to me. That seems like a pretty big plot hole to me. And who cleaned up the mess inside Vault 32 before Betty organized the resettlement there? Like, we saw on the screen of the people who had been defrosted of Bud's Buds, there are not that many people who are out and about. There's nobody living in Vault 31 that's there to go and help out. And we know that there's nobody in 32 at all because everybody in there is dead. Bud on a Roomba is very clearly helpless. Like, he got stuck just in some boxes in the hallway. So he wasn't the one who helped, which just leaves Betty. And I just do not buy that Betty cleaned up all the dead bodies and repainted and set a bunch of new furniture in 32 all by herself within a span of 12 hours. I don't know if that's a plot hole or just something they haven't addressed. I feel like it's more a plot hole because they've come full circle on the 31, 32, 33 experiments that I feel like they think they've answered all the questions here, and I still have questions. I'm sorry, I just really don't buy that you can take these people from pre-war and put them in the cryopods and have them wake up to manage these vaults without them revealing themselves in any way. Like, language changes in the span of 200 years. These people would be so obviously out of place that people would pick up on it. I've said before, people just aren't that good at keeping secrets. Truly, like, for Stephanie to get married, fall in love, have a kid, get remarried, and not once slip up about the fact that her childhood was 200 years ago, I just don't buy it. I was frustrated by the vault stuff. To have the ultimate enemy at the end of the day just be like peppy coworkers was depressing. I work a 9 to 5. I live in this late stage capitalism that we all do right now. I'm tired. I'm tired of it. When I play Fallout, it is to dance on the graves of the capitalists of Vault-Tec. It is to play around in a world where working a 9 to 5 doesn't exist. And I can build these little settlements and I can fantasize about wastelanders rebuilding society. And I don't have to think about the stock market or profits or capitalism at all. And to make it at the end of the day, ooh, just kidding. It is still capitalism. That's what's pulling the strings. They want a market monopoly. It's a bummer. And I'm not saying it's not good storytelling or anything. I think it's well done. I think it's a neat direction to take the story. I'm just tired. I've worked with people like Bud. The nightmare of those people managing my life for 200 years is genuinely a nightmare. Not some Fallout escapist, I'm shooting a Deathclaw in the face nightmare, but genuinely a 9 to 5 stress dream for me. Like, that's less fun. That's a lot less fun. I also feel like it doesn't really make sense for these other companies. Like, if they're investing money in Vault-Tec and they want a guaranteed return, you would get that return from money, and there won't be money if you destroy the entire world. Like, I feel like ensuring a return on their investments, it's more about delaying peace talks, maybe upping the tensions, maybe the resource wars. It's not destroying civilization so they can play out fantasies in vaults. Like, that's essentially consenting to a future where you're just a robo brain and you don't hold any of the power or money that you do, because currency will cease to function the way that it does. You have no savings, you have no place in the stock market, you have no company anymore. How would that be worth investing in Vault-Tec? I just don't buy that was the purpose of the vaults. We've seen other theories before that the Enclave was the one at the helm of all this, and they were doing this to collect information on an unwilling population so they could use that information for things like generational spaceflight, is the theory that I've heard the most, that I'm personally the biggest fan of. Some of the Vault experiments with the lens of we're trying to compete with each other because it's capitalism all the way down, baby. That doesn't make sense. Like, we know a ton about vaults at this point. We know a bunch of vaults that have canonically been in the game. Like, we know about the vault where there was one guy and a bunch of puppets. There is a 0% chance that one guy and a bunch of puppets is going to be the one surviving at the end. That is stupid. There is no way that you can argue that the vaults were a bunch of companies competing to see who can last the longest when we have vaults like one man and a bunch of puppets. We have vaults where there's 1,000 men and one woman. That's not going to last longer than a generation. And 1,000 women and one man. Again, that doesn't make sense as a survival experiment. There are experiments like 53 where they just purposely put people through undue stress to test the effects of stress. There's the Vault 92 with the white noise to test the effects on aggression that just made people super aggressive. There was Vault 95 with the rehab where they took a bunch of addicts and they put them in a vault, and then they revealed after they were healed that there's actually chems in the vault. And just experiments like that are cruel for the sake of cruel, to just perform experiments and collect data on unwitting people, have nothing to do with companies competing to see who can create the perfect scenario for the future of humanity. It doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. And they can sell 1 or 2 vaults like that, and I get it. I just don't buy it. I just don't buy it. And I just don't like it. I don't like the reveal that, like, ooh, Vault-Tec's the enemy, and they're so overpowered that they still have a live arsenal of nuclear weapons. That ruins everything. You know what I mean? Like, it's like recognizing that the enemy is so far overpowered compared to you that it's not even worth fighting. It's just like, okay, you guys blow up the world again. Okay. It also doesn't make any sense to me, if Barb knew that they were dropping the bomb, that she would at any point let her daughter out of her sight. You know what I mean? Like, even if she and Coop had gotten divorced at that point, if she had any knowledge that the bombs were dropping on the day that they dropped, she would not have let Janie be outside with her dad, like not close to getting into a vault. I don't buy that for a second. There's also vaults that we know canonically were unfinished. Like Fallout had a lot of vaults that were unfinished that people did not get the alert to like properly staff them on time. Like the bombs dropping was a surprise to Vault Tech too. And I know that Barb saying they could drop the bombs themselves does not actually mean for sure that they dropped the bomb. I'm sure that season 2 is going to explore a lot more of from now to the moment the bomb's actually dropped, and a million things can happen in there. I get it, but I don't love what's happening. Beyond Vault Tech, I'm also not sure what to make of the Brotherhood in this show. I feel like they didn't flesh them out beyond a hyper high control religious cult. I think, and I never play as the Brotherhood, so I'm biased with this, but my impression of the Brotherhood has always been that you could make a real argument for what they're doing. You could make a real argument for technology was what went too far, and if we can just protect humanity from that level of technological advancement, we could save them. Like I think you have to give the Brotherhood enough credit for them not to be laughable as a faction, and I was surprised that they didn't do that here. All the violence that the Brotherhood did felt unjustified. Other things from the game that I missed in the show that I thought could have been cool Easter eggs are things like perks. Like, unless it went way over my head, I didn't see any mention of perks or leveling up, and I feel like that could have been cool in the show. Tops I saw were like other viewers making jokes like, ooh, the ghoul has the bloody mess perk, which I love that. I thought those comments, people making jokes like that, were so funny, so clever. I would have liked if the show had actually like leaned into that. Bobbleheads, I would have loved to see like finding a bobblehead or leveling up in the show. I would have loved if somebody at some point in the show was over encumbered. I mean, I guess the scribes are with their like giant bag things, but again, that feels more like a joke at how the Brotherhood can't run things than actually like a nod to being over encumbered because you picked up that last piece of scrap. Death Claws, super mutants. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we saw either of those. Another thing that I really missed, that I thought they really missed the opportunity for, was charisma. Like showing how a different set of special stats is still like a valid playthrough. And I feel like they could have done that pretty easily with Lucy. And I'm thinking specifically of the scene where she and Maximus come across those two people that are like crossing the bridge, and she tries to talk her way out of the situation. She's trying to negotiate with them, and I kind of thought that was going to work. And what happens instead is Maximus realizes they can't trust anybody, and he reaches over and takes her gun and shoots them. And it's kind of this moment for Lucy learning about the lawlessness of the wasteland. Like you always have your gun, always shoot first, always fight. And it would have been such a cool moment instead to show that like a charisma heavy build is still a very valid way to play this game. It's a valid approach to being in the wasteland. If Lucy had been talking to them, and if it had worked, like if you had heard that little cha-ching sound that you do in the games when you pass a speech check, and if then those other characters had been like, okay, we believe you, we'll move safely, and then they had crossed, and then Maximus had been like, Lucy, like, how did you do that? And if she had been able to show him that, like, sometimes charisma is the answer, it would have been really cool for us as the audience and for Maximus to see that there's value in these charisma heavy builds that Lucy's trying to do. But also, it would have been really neat for Lucy's character to see early on that the people of the wasteland, some of them can be talked to. Not all of them. Like, they're still cannibals. They can still be awful. They still could have been planning to kill her or whatever they needed to do. It just would have been a neat moment of growth and a neat nod to the game. And instead, we got this show where the answer repeatedly and bluntly, like absolutely hit in the face with it multiple times, is violence is the answer here. Like absolutely, it's gore, it's leveling up and picking up your gun. Like that's the answer every time. And I just don't buy that. And if you follow me on here, you know I don't buy that because I do my series of peaceful settlement builds. That's how I like to play the game. And I know that's not everybody's thing, but I also think that there is value in high intelligence, high charisma builds over strength. And it would have been cool. It would have been cool to see that in game instead. And I think the bridge scene would have been a really cool opportunity for it. Other open questions that I have here in general are, how did Moldaver get to the future? If she didn't work for Vault Tech, How did she get there, and how long has she been unfrozen? And who unfroze her, and why? Also, why was the Enclave doing experiments on purebred dogs the way they were? Like, was there any point to that beyond just adding dog meat to the show, or was that it? And what happened to the broken water chip?
The water chip is destroyed. The vault only has enough water to keep our population alive for 2 months.
Like, I know that was there as a nod to the games, and that's cute and all, but did it magically get fixed, or what? Like, it feels like it was such a throwaway line that I'm bummed. So that's where I'm at. That's episode 8. That's what I got. I said in my last episode review, the reason that I love Fallout has never been for the main quests. Truly, it's not. It's always been for the world itself. And with that lens, I think this show is a delight. And I had a good time, and I love the soundtrack, and I love the costumes, and I love the acting, and I love so many characters in it. And that's wonderful. I just feel so frustrated. But so much of the games is that feeling of walking on the corpse of the old world, of the mistakes, and feeling like you can rebuild it. You can pick the faction to do it with. You can try and save the world. You can try and rebuild the wasteland from scratch. And getting rid of that whole feeling for just getting its capitalism all the way down, it feels really icky and tiring to me in a way that I can't quite put my fingers on, because it's a good reveal, right? It's a good twist. Like having Hank, the good guy that Lucy's been chasing this whole episode, be the one to have destroyed Shady Sands. It's a good twist. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to deny it. But making Vault Tech overpowered enough to have pulled that off and still be the ones monitoring the vaults and continuing this, I felt bummed. That's the best way I can put it. Season 2 has been confirmed, but I don't think we have any information yet about when that would come out. So I have a lot of time to chew on these thoughts, and I would love to also hear yours. If you loved the reveal or you felt a similar way that I did, please let me know. If you enjoyed this video and if you watched all the way to the end, thank you so much. Please consider liking it or subscribing to me if you enjoy my content. I appreciate you guys so much. I had so much fun watching this series and coming here to talk about it. I really hope you enjoyed it too. I will still be doing my regular Fallout settlement build, so go check out that playlist if you haven't, and I will see you later. Thanks again so much for joining me. Bye-bye.